she's still tired. She's
That's
struggling.
what I've heard the most. It's Steve.
Yeah.
But if that's the worst thing, then Larry McHale. If he hadn't.
He's live streaming.
Oh, he was
Who
in
is?
hospital
Justin?
for quite a while.
Yeah.
Justin, are you live streaming this?
He's not all the time. But and he was all vaccinated.
I just started.
Are we
You're
muted?
I can do it.
Oh, why, we don't have to be. I was just curious.
No, you're not.
No, you're not muted.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because I had to call Mike and tell him how overwhelmed I was with all that.
That wasn't much help because I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm still learning this too. Hey,
I just
Michelle,
wanna double check to make sure.
we got a chair for you. Wherever you can sit next to the president if you want.
Great, thanks.
Hi, Deborah. Hi, guys.
Hello, how are
Howdy.
you?
Right, let's have some fun.
Where should I sit?
Right
You sit right here, right between us.
Okay,
Special place for you.
Yeah.
different setup, huh?
You better behave now, Michelle.
Okay.
Not that that's a problem.
He was, well, Josh in trouble.
All right. Well, I think we got everybody back. So we're ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, let's call the meeting to order with a roll call vote, please.
Mac,
Here.
Rottinghouse,
Here,
Dyke,
Here,
Berglund,
Here,
Freund is absent, and Jones.
Here.
All right, agenda item number 2, the reading of the district mission vision statement by Director Berglund.
our mission, regardless of who you are or what your story is, you can learn and be loved here. Our vision, creating compassionate, competent problem solvers. Our operating principles, information for one is information for all. No surprises, verify facts, think ahead, disagree and explain your thinking, and then commit.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have any edits, changes, or corrections to the agenda?
There's one change. We're going to table number 9, enrollment summary. The reason being is we do have the seat count. That's accurate, but I have still not finalized certified enrollment. So I want to have both numbers available to the board. We're still finishing up some special education certification, the weightings that we have. That's not completely done yet. So I should have that by the next board meeting. And I'm going to do a 5-year analysis of our enrollment so the community can see that. So we'll just table that for tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Okay.
I move to approve the agenda as
Amended.
amended.
second.
The motion is second to approve the agenda as amended. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to agenda item number 4, welcome visitors for public comment. So we are here in the high school library. I had to think for a second, where are we? Do we have anybody here who'd like to make any public comment tonight? Seeing no one, we will move on to agenda item number 5, comments by board members and superintendent.
Strategic focus area and goal number 1 of student engagement, just got to go to Greece this weekend and just always continually just impressed at the talent that we have with our students, and just had a chance to wander around and watch students leading other students in terms of the backstage and the set making and all the things they did. So just they had a phenomenal job there. Just really, really impressed with the work that they did. And then with the student engagement as well, just really impressed that we continue to work on finding value beyond the classroom for our kids. And I go around, we're engaging kids in how to apply learning. And you're going to see more. We're going to have our pathways presentation in December, but you're going to see how it's not just, we want improved test scores and competence. That's part of our vision, but getting on to what's the value beyond the classroom? How does that turn into real careers, real problem solving, real college, credits and things like that. And we're seeing a real transformation happen with that. As we talked about at one point, we want inquiry to be everywhere in what we do. And again, I'm blessed because I get to see it every day. I get to walk through classrooms every day, and I watched that today in some elementary at the Washington, but love to talk to you more about that. So strategic focus area number 2 in equity. Our equity team is back up in meeting, and we're actually trying to get more people involved in some community members. We've talked about even maybe engaging some of our local ministers as well, because we know they have a unique perspective of our community, how to get more people involved with just making sure all kids get to learn and be loved at high levels, regardless of their backgrounds. And we just know it's going to take a whole community effort, not just us, but had a nice conversation with our chairperson of the equity team, Jenna Hagelin, And so that's going well. I think we have some good people that I still want to continue to get involved with that. Strategic focus area number 3, which would be leadership. And again, you saw some examples of the last board meeting, but we're continuing to see more and more public speaking. Want to compliment Director Jones, went to the Lions meeting with me the other day and talked about what's going on, some of the great things that are happening. And again, just seeing leadership pervasive through our organization. And again, too many things that I can, too numerous to mention, but just continue to be proud of our kids doing that. And then finally, strategic focus area of healthy culture. Super excited to talk more about tonight, but Jake Schaefer will come in and we'll talk about the journey that we're doing. You know, I was hired under the premise of we wanted to improve healthy culture, and I really feel we've made huge gains in that. And now we're about to level up to the next level of being a truly peculiar culture, which really forced us to identify what are some of the systemic issues of how school culture can become unhealthy and start to attack that at high levels, and appreciate the work that he's been doing to come in with that. So we'll talk more about that tonight, but yeah, a lot of good things happen throughout the school district right now.
Thanks, Frank. Any other comments from any other board members? Well, we have the ISB conference coming up. We're all looking forward to that. That's going to be exciting. So that'll be great. And Greece was fantastic for those of you who got an opportunity to go. Really, really cool. Okay, well then we'll move on to agenda item number 6, committee reports. We don't have any committee reports, so we'll move on to agenda item number 7, the Jake Schaefer presentation.
Yeah, I see.
6:15.
Oh, it's not 6:15.
No, that's a public hearing. We'll be
Okay,
coming
I
up
was
with
gonna
that
say,
later.
I think
So, yep. And he is hopping on right now, so
Wow.
he should be coming in as he comes in. But I'll start this off a little bit. And so we have been working on tremendously on healthy culture through our organization for the last several years, and we've also got to the point where here's the issue: almost all of us that are working in the school district are lifers in education. We went through PK-12 education, and then we went to probably 4-year degrees, many of us, and then we went right back into public education. There are things that we have blind spots that we don't see. And so what's been amazing is having an outside person who he has a background in mental health counseling, but he also has worked at Woodward Academy. He'll talk about different things. He's worked in a lot of different, group organizations, has expertise in building highly effective, healthy groups through a process of forming, norming, storming, and performing. And that really leads into the work we're doing with PLCs. Now, we've been working on this a lot. And so I want to say some of it was kind of organic as well. I was happy to say at one point, we were vulnerable enough, our leadership team realized that we went through trauma last year. Everything with COVID, we lost a teacher, we had people seriously sick, seriously ill, all the things that we went through. And so we brought in Jake to do a trauma debrief, much as you see like first responders and things do as well. And in our relationship with him, and realized that he had noticed some things about our culture that he's like, you have a great culture, and did you notice this and notice this and notice this? And what was interesting, we're like, no, we did not, because he's not an educator. He has a different perspective. And so as we got engaged with him more, and now he's the point as a consultant, he's been coming up regularly. So we piloted a little bit of this work with him this fall, and now we're ready to really roll out some more of this work, more extensively into the spring. And the thing we're excited about too is we're using COVID money for this, because obviously mental health and social emotional learning of students and our staff is a huge piece. And so this is a great way we can continue to improve the culture of our organization. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. It's a lot of this going around what this does, but I'll have Jake talk about his background. He's here, talk about what he's doing. And again, being clear too, this doesn't really require board action. This is an outside consultant that, isn't necessarily takes board action to do. However, it's a big enough deal. We want the board to be aware of it. And even tomorrow, we're sending out an email to all staff to really hit more on this. He's met with many of our staffs at this point. He's piloting some work with different groups of our staff as well as we get rolling and scaling this up. But we'll have Jake talk more about what he's doing and all the questions you might have. So welcome, Jake Schaefer. Oh, and yeah, PLCs are professional learning communities. It's where our teachers get together. I totally fall in. Thank you, Director Berglund. I fall into the trap of using jargon and acronyms nobody knows. Professional learning communities where our teachers get together and do a collaborative planning for and preparing for class and really work as a team. So, all right, Jake. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here and explain a little bit about, Mike asked me to come in and just talk about a little more about what we're doing. And I've got a brief presentation set up just to walk it through because I know it's a lot of high concept work. So to give you an idea of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then also answer any questions anybody might have offhand. So as Mike said, I'm a consultant, leadership consultant working in. I'm with Renewed Minds Consulting out of Cedar Falls. I also have a heavy background in mental health. I work do some clinician work as well out of Cedar Valley Mental Health Services. And I've worked a large chunk of my group where this work comes in relevant was Woodward Academy for At-Risk Teens. So we did a lot, they did a lot there. And then in my roles as well on healthy normative culture, communication and healthy disagreement, conflict resolution with staff and students. And then a lot of group process and group dynamics. I manage some teams down there. So I've got that background as well, staff supervision, things like that. And so as Mike had said, I came up in June and kind of just what I do is you never kind of get one thing with me. I don't compartmentalize that way in my skill set. And so I might be coming in heavily focused, but I might pick up a thing here or there. And that's kind of what happened. I came in just to help everybody debrief and process last year with the hardships. And it mentioned a few things like, hey, have you looked into some group process points? Are you familiar with any of Gladding's work? It might be helpful for your teams. And that's kind of what I thought would be it. We did it in our follow-up we had scheduled and just through that process. And he looked into some stuff and had asked me about it. And I said, well, I'm happy to come in and put some eyes on a few things if I can be helpful, and really just saw that opportunity. So to walk through, got a brief PowerPoint to share. And I'll just walk through some of that. Can everybody see that okay?
You just give it 1 second, Jake. It's loading on our end.
Okay.
There we go. Now we're good.
Okay, perfect. So the big focus we're going to be doing is group dynamic and normative culture. And those are two different aspects of it. So the group dynamic and normative culture tie in so closely together. And normative culture, what it is, can you see the whole slide?
No.
Okay, let me see if I can adjust that. All right, can you see them if I just do it like this?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, that's
No,
better.
I can't read it.
We can't.
Well, some of us.
Too much or okay?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
That's better? Okay. So normative culture, what normative culture is what most people do most of the time. So for example, what's the rule? Like a rule is what's it's supposed to be, and normative culture is what it mostly is. So the rule on the 218 driving up is 65. Most people drive between 68 and 72. If somebody's driving 65 or slower, they're going too slow. If they're driving over 75, 80, we kind of wonder what they're doing. So that's what normative culture is getting people to kind of set a norm of this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. So we're going to work directly in what's already been established. And Mike and I told him that to all your staff, all your teams, some really healthy normative culture baselines. The mission, vision, and values of the Charles City District is amazing. It ties in, it covers love, respect, a caring family, and getting kids to be the competent problem solvers is a really amazing baseline. So what the work we're coming in to do is all behavior based. So we want to form actions and behaviors that live out that mission, vision, and values. And then we want to get that to be a norm. So this is just what most people do most of the time. So, and I apologize, I forget the young man's name that was on Good Morning America.
Mario.
So that was a good example of Charles City normative culture. He was a compassionate, competent problem solver right there in that moment. He just did it. Kid was having a hard time. He just went over, and this is just what you do, and this is what we do here. And that's a great example of a normative culture moment. It wasn't somebody directed him or he was trying to get the spotlight. It was just, this is what we do. And that's what we're going to look at is how do we make this happen? It's going to be more directed at first, but going so well that it's just what everybody does. So we'll also be focusing, so that's working within the normative culture development. What we'll also be focusing on is healthy staff dynamics. And this is vital to performance and thus, staff performance and thus student achievement. The belief is that as staff individuals and teams get healthier, can communicate better, collaborate better, and generally are feeling social, emotional, healthier. The cognitive function goes up, the collaboration goes up, and as their performance goes up, that is going to trickle down to better academic instruction and norms, and which should correlate directly to student achievement, both personally and their health and well-being, and my hope would be then it reflective in performance scores as well, as we're working with the PLCs and they're trying to get really good education norms. If anybody, I sent this to Mr. Fisher, I can send it to anybody else. A lot of this comes out of, there's several lit reviews, but specific one by Joel I'm going to pronounce that wrong. And that just so there's research to this too, that investing in healthy staff dynamic and relationships show high correlation to product performance, which is a little businessy, but in essence, if you're working with people, having healthy people helps having healthy students. A big part, which we've already done one training with the senior leadership team, is being able to work through communication and work through disagreements. You can throw communication out a lot, and it's easy to do that, but it can be general platitudes. So the specific work I do is helping people see arguments and conflicts as disagreements, just differences of opinions. And then what I feel is more important is give them the skills to talk through those disagreements to find some healthy agreement and resolution. So first, we can just see this as a difference, not a conflict. And then we can talk through these differences to reconcile and get on the same page about good opportunities. And the inability to do that, it really gets in the way of collaboration, innovative teaching, and the perception of not being able to do it by default. It has the potential on its worst end to damage relationships, teacher and staff relationships. And then that prevents kids from receiving full academic opportunities. Already coming in on some of the professional learning community meetings, I've seen just a little bit of this play out. Is there's just some different philosophies, whether it's instructional approaches or curriculum, maybe just different ways to connect with kids, and they're having a hard time completely talking through those in a healthy way to get to some really good collaboration. So we've already kind of started hitting the ground running on a few of those in some of the PLCs, and hopefully we'll be able to roll out more of that training. So everybody, and I believe Mr. Fisher's conceptualization is that every staff will have access to that training. So they'll be able to have skills which also translate into better collaboration, communication with kids. They're universal skills. I use them individuals, with couples, with families, with groups. So they're pretty universal skills that help increase connection and collaboration. The other thing we're working on is group dynamics. So this is specific to group work, senior leadership teams, any team that meets on campus. Heavy is going to be on the professional learning communities, and we're going to work on making those more cohesive. So the communication is going to improve, as I previously mentioned. There's going to be better cohesion. People are going to feel they're very effective and helpful, and that's our goal. And that work is based on Gladding's group process stages. So we work through forming, storming, norming, and performing. So you can look those up. There's plenty out there I can send information as well. The forming is just better understanding of who are we, why do we meet, and what do we do when we meet. And sometimes it's just kind of well, we're all a bunch of teachers, so we get together. And so really being able to label down what our time is precious, what do we want to do when we're here. The storming is just, again, working through in a healthy way some of that disagreement or potential conflict and being able to talk through those things. And then norming, again, it just becomes established patterns of behavior. What is going to happen during that PLC time or those senior leadership meetings or any other team meeting on campus, any of the campuses. And that's when performance just skyrocketed. And we use it in our group process. Gladding formed it for work groups. And so there's lots of information out there as well, but that's all where the group process dynamic, the research for group process dynamic comes from. The specific methods we're going to use is, and already using, one-on-one collaboration and coaching. So individual time with anybody. Right now we're focusing heavy on the senior leadership teams. Group facilitation as I've come in and done some group facilitation and are currently working at Washington and Lincoln specific to those PLC formal trainings. So like I said, the communication training, we're gonna really get in good shape and hopefully be able to roll that out to teachers as soon as it's ready and is appropriate. And then being able to walk through some staffs. I've connected with some of the Mr. Jerns and Mr. Taylor about how this can look in the middle school as they feel like some of their PLCs are in a little bit pretty good shape. So it might be directly with them or just being able to walk through it and help identify areas that could use some improvement or we have opportunities to make even better. There we go. Sorry about that. I use a private secure line for all of my telehealth, so I'm still a little Zoom inefficient. So are there any questions, concerns, anything I can answer?
Well, thanks, Jake, for that. I'll ask the board members. Do you guys have any? Does any board member have any questions?
So in essence, you're going to be training the staff on communication processes and conflict management, right?
Correct. And then working, the next phase then will be working on specific trainings to work on behavior implementation for normative culture. So that's the working with people, just explaining and supporting what culture is already in Charles City and how to communicate that in ways that speak the language.
Okay. And then with the PLCs and stuff, are you going to be talking to them about how they're norming and storming and?
It's, yeah, we're talking about, and a lot of this is the benefit of my approach to things. I'm kind of a practical guy by nature, so I like to get the most out of everybody's time. So a lot is they're working on things, and then so there's some reference points to those, but a lot of it's just going to be facilitation. So they're going to walk through. So right now, I know the Washington groups, some phonics stuff that I'm working with the kindergarten and team. And so just helping them communicate and facilitate. So I'll encourage, being able to encourage and reach out and connect. And then in those moments, if there's something that comes up, we can address it directly. So it's a lot of kind of live action interaction, and then just being able to help and jump in and support and facilitate in those moments. Which I find to be beneficial because then there's still task work being done with that time and there's simultaneous training.
One of the biggest areas of growth that not just Charles City, but we've really found as we research all schools have is the siloed nature of schools. You as a teacher go into your classroom and shut the door, and other than you and the kids, you're really on your own all day. And so how do you continue to build really strong, high trust, high safety, you're gonna hear that a lot, high trust, high safety bonds with your colleagues when you literally might only see them 20 minutes a day or maybe less. And you talk to some teachers, they'll go, I haven't seen so-and-so, and we work 4 classrooms down and we haven't seen each other in, 2 or 3 days. And how do we create that really strong bond like you see in really high performing military units, that close proximity. And one of the side effects of that you see is there's a hesitancy for people to engage in disagreement. Disagreement is just a difference of perspective, but disagreement then tied with negative emotions turns into conflict. And I've talked to so many staff members that really struggle with that. Well, I need to tell the staff member something I disagree with them, but I'm afraid if I do that, it'll just turn into a fight or a conflict or negative emotions. So then you have 2 options, either to get into a fight or to just avoid it altogether. And we tend to avoid, or we tend to, as leaders, we get a lot of this, hey, can you go talk to so-and-so for me? But nobody likes that because everybody's like, well, gosh, why did they just come talk to me? And what Jake's really helping us understand is we're not equipped to talk to people about disagreements in a way that's healthy, that doesn't end up in conflict. Because we've seen that sometimes where we go talk to people, it does turn into a big conflict. So we want to equip people with better tools on how to communicate through disagreement. And those disagreements is where the magic happens. When we have disagreements, we end up usually with a better product for kids. But when we waste so much time and energy on negative emotions, that's energy we take away from kids and ourselves. So again, it seems like a high concept thing, but we are so excited about how much energy and capacity we could get back for our adults if we could effectively work through disagreements productively without negative emotions attached. Jake, am I hitting it in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've told them I've done a fair amount of training and marriage counseling. That's where a lot of these techniques come from, because people with that typically like each other or want to like each other, but come in high conflict. So once people can recognize that they can have a difficult conversation and come out of the other side okay, and the relationship can be okay, the trust level, as Mike talked, that safety and that trust level goes up, and the safety to do that again at another point in time. And then it's easier if there's something bigger, we can work that out. But just then, as those conversations are happening, it stays small, because that's usually what is very common. It starts as a small thing and it grows because of the inability to connect and process on it. But if we're able to feel like, okay, we can have a conversation, and I can bring up like, I don't know if I agree with you on this point. And this curriculum, for example, is one I know that's rolled out, and people have, and understandably, rightly so, some passionate opinions about it. And we know we can sit down in a room and we can talk through all of the reasons we feel passionately about this subject. And then we're going to get the other side and we're going to come into a good agreement, and we're going to be able to move forward. And where it doesn't feel like a win or lose, when those things start happening, the cohesiveness gets so strong, and that's when really strong growth happens. And as Mike said, that spent time, parking, being upset with somebody, we're going to go to the parking lot, we're going to complain about everything, and naturally that's what our people are going to do if they don't feel like they have the resources to communicate that as individuals with each other or directly as groups. And so that's what I feel like we've already started to see some gains. And then my hope would be, as the work continues, people really start feeling that aspect, and that'll really help implement normative culture strategies on just strengthening the culture that's already been established.
I guess I'm not sure if this question is for Jake or for Mike, but how do we measure or evaluate success of this process?
It's going to be both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative sometimes is just the observation. We've seen some vast improvements in our administrative teams already. And here's like the touchy-feely thing that's hard to measure, right? But you ever sat in a meeting where you feel like people are walking on eggshells? I'm like, I don't want to say anything that might upset other people around here. When you start to feel the absence of eggshells, when you feel free-flowing conversation, you start to feel these things. That's a big piece. But what does it look like in terms of quantitative data? Well, it's our engagement data. As we do staff surveys, as how do they feel engaged? Here's one of the things that we have just struggled with as an organization in our surveys that we administer. My colleagues are held to high standards of work. When I got here, that was like in the baseline was like really low, like 20%. And now it's gotten about the mid 70s as a district, and it's just stuck. It hasn't gotten above. And what we've hypothesized is it's because the administrative team got it to high 70s, right? But what we've never gotten to is, just be honest, peers feeling comfortable holding each other accountable, right? So if you're Bill and you see John coming in late to work every day and it drives you nuts, right? We tell everybody but John, right? But well, I can't tell John, he'll be mad at me. But the truth is maybe John needs that. Maybe John like, hey, man, this is people are talking, people are frustrated, those types of things. But how do you do that in a healthy way? So we're going to see that in our survey data. Hopefully you'd see in our teacher turnover data being lower. And then eventually we really want to push this culture, as we get the staff set to start talking about what does this culture look like in kids, what does it look like with their parents and different things as well, of really truly living our mission and vision. There are times being vulnerable where we had to really wrestle with the fact that sometimes our admin team, our senior leadership team wasn't living our mission and vision. Sometimes we weren't talking to each other. We were talking about each other. We had to recognize that was a really it was a big moment for us here a few months ago. We really talked about that vulnerably. Are we really the exemplars of the culture? And then are we holding our staff to a higher example than we're even holding ourselves? And so I guess to answer your question, some of it's going to be qualitative. It's going to be feeling it, but part of it's going to be focus group data. We're going to ask them, like, how does it feel? But also I'll tell you the effectiveness of our PLCs, our professional learning communities. Right now they're good, but we want to level up to great in terms of the product they're producing. So I think you'll see it there too, Josh. Like how high quality are the lesson plans? They're guaranteed and viable. We have rubrics for highly effective professional learning communities. And as we get the high trust and safety, we're performing those PLCs at a higher level too. So that's another outcome. But I totally get those are indirect outcomes, but they will be outcomes tied to it.
And Mike's asked me to come in and look at some of the culture data. I know they do as they've talked about the surveys. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'll put eyes on that so we can put in very specific, some qualitative, possibly some quantitative scaling questions that are going to specific track some of this stuff. And like I said, the subjectiveness of if feeling positive walking into a work environment, that's where I would hope everybody could get to. I've got teachers on my caseload right now. It's as I've got more familiar with these dynamics, hearing some of those things, the burnout, we talk about it in things, social emotional burnout. Well, what is burnout? Well, it's people being so frustrated that they can't do their job well, that they don't want to do it at all. And so being able to work on the aspects, what frustrates you, what are you stuck at, and being able to address some of those. And then, hopefully it would be hard. It would all be correlative, but hopefully theory is if the teacher dynamic collaboration and mental emotional health, which is the article, I talked about the product with there's lots of solid research out there that indicates healthier staff and less stressed staff opens up cognitive function opens up performance. So as the teachers themselves are performing better, then that should directly correlate to test scores as well.
And I'll speak to that. I think in the last 2 weeks, I've been involved in just 4 or 5 peer conflict situations with staff members that I just look back and go, yeah, and we got them resolved, right? But I think about like me, the other 2 staff members involved in all these, like how much time and energy and, just sometimes negative emotions. Like if somebody's sitting at home, frustrated about this thing, like, oh my gosh, how much energy are we losing to this? And so as we can get, and then I thought if we had the tools, this could have been put down a long time ago between the 2 people, and I wouldn't have had to get involved. And so, yeah, that's what we're looking forward to, get the gains in energy to do other things that will be more productive to our bottom line of our mission and vision.
So I heard Jake mention something. Are we looking at surveying staff to kind of get a baseline?
We already have baseline data because we survey our staff monthly, and then we also have the quarterly. So we have a small monthly survey. It's like 2 questions. And then we have a quarterly survey that is 12 to 13 questions. And so we have a lot of that data, and then we can pull that data from previous years as well and look at that.
Okay.
Well, I know when it comes to burnout, and I read article after article about that with educators, especially, I think it's always kind of been there, but I think that the last 1.5 years has really brought out more burnout. And then when they get faced with lack of appreciation and things like that, we were the gods at one time, the teachers were, and now they're back to ordinary people again. So I think it's all good to acknowledge that for them and to help them through some of that.
And the big word you hear, the jargon word, but for educators would be teacher self-efficacy is the fancy thing this connects to. The efficacy being that we're all on the same page, we're moving together.
Right.
We're not, we keep saying we have to play this as a team sport. It can't be an individual. It can't be like an individual tennis match. We're all on our own. It has to be like a football team. The offensive line, everybody, we've got to block and move at the same time and together. But that takes, football coaches will tell you it takes very high chemistry. Or I'll use a marching band example. We all have to be absolutely in time together. It can't be like a solo ensemble contest where everybody does their own thing. And we know that. And schools are designed to be that way. Everybody does their own thing. And we're really trying to break down those literal physical walls that exist.
Any other comments or questions? Well, Jake, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. It's a great presentation.
No, thank you. Absolutely. I love, and my wife is a Charles City grad, so my in-laws are still in town. So I'll be honest, it was kind of a nice serendipitous opportunity to be able to do some work up there, and you're helping me make my in-laws proud. I get to do something in their town, so I appreciate that. That was a win for me.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, thank you.
Let's move on to agenda item number 8, healthy campus metrics presentation.
All right, we are excited to roll this out. It's been 2 years, a lot of hard work to make this happen. So we go through our healthy metrics tonight. So just a little bit of history of this again as well. Going back 2 years ago, we had a conversation about how do we have some measurements on if we're healthy, things are going well. And, everybody has their own opinion, but we wanted to actually collect data on this. Now, what I want to make a point is this data is very, very broad. This data in of itself likely won't tell you much. It's like your check engine light. My check engine light's on my truck right now. Bummer, right? It doesn't tell me much. I'd have to get a coder to decode it and figure out what's wrong with what's actually wrong with the truck. So these are like that. It's like the check engine light. So this in of itself is not going to tell you much. What it's going to do is going to tell you you're going to have to dig deeper into more data. We know this with school districts. We have way too much data. Going back what you said, Josh, with our survey data, we have so much survey data that we can cross and chop and dice. But what happens is it gets overwhelming. What we want to do is be able to isolate some of the data, what we need to get to, or have like a warning light. You need to dig in this data. So, and that's what we have here. So I'll go through staff attendance, for example, staff satisfaction. Does it necessarily mean staff satisfaction is good or bad by this? Maybe, maybe not, but we'll know if staff attendance has gotten way low. We want to dig in that staff climate culture data because we might be afraid that, man, we have a lot of people getting physically sick or they're taking mental health days or what's going on and digging into that. Are people starting to look for new jobs, that type of stuff. And we can start to dig into that data that we do monthly. Student satisfaction is the same way. We're looking at student attendance, and then we're also looking at another piece called positive referrals. And positive referrals is less of an indicator. It's more of a lead measure, but it's mandated that we expect all of our staff once a month to submit a written positive referral to a student. And this could be a text message, it could be an email, it could be a postcard, it could be a phone call. And so, you can see that. And then behavioral referrals is the opposite, student engagement. How many, behavior issues have we had to deal with as an organization? And then another piece will be walkthrough data. How many times have administrators went in and given feedback to teachers? Trust is still not done yet because we're doing enrollment data. And again, I don't have that completed yet, but we'll have it by next time. Evidence of learning, there's two things here. There's MAP data. MAP data is our assessment of progress that we are now doing 3 times a year. Now, what you'll notice is it is only, that's only 3 times a year. Everything else on here is monthly. But what we're going to use that then is to look at the proficiency score. Now, this is a really broad score, and we're still tweaking this. Again, I think it's a little low what it means because we're trying to get this dialed in. Because again, we've been working on this for a year, testing this out. But what that is how many students are meeting the competency at grade level. So meeting their standards. So we use standards in our standards in our report card, and how many are meeting standards. Now we've raised the rigor on things, so we know we have growth to go. Again, it seems low, but also you have to keep in mind it's October. It should be low. We have kids that are still not meeting standards. So as we do that, now if that was that number in June, that'd be a lot more concerning, obviously. So it's obviously a piece to grow. Connectedness is how much students are connected to things beyond core classroom. Now, the leadership is still, that's a wonky number. We're trying to identify how kids are in leadership roles, whether like student ambassadors, whether student board members, whether doing student things. Why that number is still low is we haven't completely defined what is a student leadership role. Like we were having a debate the other day does, a leadership role, would that be like working in the office? Would that be sweeping the hallways? Would it be a captain on a sports team? So we're still defining that. So that number is not complete yet as well. But the participation number we're still working on as well, 63.5%. Now, what I'll tell you that does not include right now, it does not include music students. So we need to go back there and do that. We realized that was a number that wasn't in there. So we realized like band, orchestra, choir, some of those pieces that are, while those are co-curricular classes, they should be in there because clearly they're doing something beyond a curricular class. So again, some of these are numbers that we're still working on. I can't say this is perfect yet by any means. We're still working through what this data means, but we want to have something that will be a baseline of what we're doing. Now, something you'll see added to this in the future will be in the staff satisfaction, student satisfaction, and trust. For parent trust is going to be our net promoter scores. Net promoter is based on this question: would you recommend our service to a trusted family friend or family member? And it is something many businesses across America use. Now, it's only something we're going to dipstick 3 times a year. We just are finishing up right now. So next time I report this out at the December meeting, I'll have those net promoter scores. They'll be static because we'll only dipstick that 3 times a year. But here's what's nice. It gives us some reference points, right? And we're like, wow, net promoter is at 8.7, which is really high, but but for the staff, but our attendance rate is 75%. Is that jiving, right? Same way with enrollment. Enrollment's up, but our net promoter score is low. Those types of things. And obviously, we're doing the net promoter with our students as well. We are next week going to be administering a student satisfaction survey, grades 3 through 12 with all the Chromebooks. And so we'll have that net promoter score in there as well. So we're doing those quarterly. So we're getting that data in there pretty regularly. Could some of these metrics change? Absolutely. If we find the metrics not useful, we may change it to something else, but we wanted to start, we had a team work on this Pat and Janice, you were both on the original team that started with this. So it's been, again, a 2-year journey. But, want to highlight some, really positive things, and this was just through this period, basically through October. We had 305 positive referrals go out. 305 positive contacts went out to our families in this time period, and 285 walkthroughs by administrators and coaches where they're getting feedback, into our organization. Staff satisfaction is the attendance rate. It's a little lower than we want it to be, but we are also counting. We have 2 unfilled special education vacancies right now that we're dealing with, and because of that, those are counted as absences, so that's bringing that down. Our student attendance, we've actually been pleasantly surprised. It was much higher than we thought it'd be with some of the norovirus and COVID things that we had coming through. That's been good. And then, obviously the proficiency is always a concern. However, what I'll tell you is our MAP data will be coming in. We're just finishing up the MAP test. The middle schools finished it, but the high school and Lincoln are just taking it. We don't do MAP tests with grade at Washington because it's not a K through 2 test, but we are going to do it 3 through 12, again, 3 times a year. And that's great because we're going to know how we're going to do it in the ISAS long before. The MAP test is actually more rigorous and more challenging than even the ISAP score. So we'll be able to then compare that proficiency score over to the MAP data as well. And we'll get the connectedness cleaned up as well, getting that a little more clear. So again, this is just a first read. I'm not going to tell you it's like super accurate yet because we're still getting some of these scores dialed in, but I want to at least give you the proof of concept of what we're working with. Our goal is that we're going to be looking at this monthly with the board. And what we do is we have individual dashboards for each campus. We have an administrative meeting where we go through it. Every administrator rolls out their data. We do it, the whole administrative team, we're transparent. So just on Friday, they went through their data and talked about that. Down the road, we want to do some goal setting. And what will be nice is with goal setting, if we say, hey, next month, this is our goal, we could start having these colors like in red, yellow, or green. Like, hey, red, man, we're not meeting at all, or yellow, we're growing, or green, we're definitely hitting our goals. So down the road, you're going to see some goal setting for this as well and have some measures of progress. But again, you got to have some baseline data to get that going. And down the road, right now, it's the administrative team really using this. We're going to start using this more with our teacher leadership teams, our execution teams, span of care teams, and eventually being something that we use, throughout the entire organization with all of our teachers. But that, again, that's a 2 to 3 year process, which is on our strategic plan. So, really geeky stuff. I like geeky stuff, but I love any questions that you have. And again, I want to give the board something you can use to, have an idea of like, how are we doing right now? And again, so this is our dashboard.
Questions? Comments?
sense.
Sounds like a good start.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, there's no action on that one, so we'll move to agenda item number 10. And I think Jerry is here, and we would ask
Jerry.
Jerry to come up for Jerry's corner. So, Mr. Mitchell, if you want to pull up your chair and get comfortable.
How's it going tonight?
Great,
Good.
we're excited to have you here, Jerry.
Thank you. Nice to be here. So as you can see, we're getting our two buildings put together up at the Transportation Center for the grounds building and also for the school vehicles. And improved all the two buildings, the interior work and all that a while ago. So now I'd like to come to you I got two bids on some exterior cement. And we're not going to do all of it this year, but we're going to do quite a chunk of it this year. We'd like to anyway, with your approval. And the reason we're not going to do it all is because of the time frame trying to get it done. I couldn't find a whole lot of ones that would do a lot of it at this fall yet and getting into the winter time. So I did get two bids, which is Jed's Construction and also Notes Custom Concrete. One's from the Elma area, the other one's more by Cowell. I did ask a couple others to provide bids, and both of them declined because they just couldn't get to it this fall yet. So low bid was Jed's Construction at $55,000. So
Can I ask you a question, Jerry?
yeah.
So I've never heard of these companies, and that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that Jed's or Notes are not a company that popped up last week, pop
Yeah.
down next week. We just want to make sure that they're going to complete the work and
We had Notes do our driveway at our old house like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
okay.
And
Is it the
Jed's
same note
Construction-
though?
I'm pretty sure.
There are lots of
And
notes.
Right, I
Jed's
know, that's my
Construction is currently doing the Cedar Falls, the entire cement work for all of Cedar Falls' new high school.
Who is, I'm sorry?
Jed's, the one
Jed's,
that got
okay.
the bid, they're
Oh,
doing the
gotcha.
entire project, so they're at a spot right now where they're gonna have some time before they have to go back down to Cedar Falls, so
Squeeze this in.
they, also Jed's gets all of the, Casey's, in this entire part of the state and into some other states where they're going now, so both very reputable
Okay.
companies.
And then they use local companies and stuff
Yeah,
for all
so
their materials. Okay,
All the
great.
cement would come from Kroll.
Great. That's
Yeah.
important too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah, so there was one local one that I tried to get a bid that does a lot of cement work with us, and he's having a hard time getting a couple of our projects finished up, so he couldn't give a bid. And another one was one that's done a lot of the dirt work for us and so forth. They have a cement portion of their company, and they just couldn't get to it. They do all the quick stars around, so they couldn't pull away from those right now to do it either. So,
Okay. Any comments from board members or questions or?
I'll make a motion to approve Director of Operations Jerry Mitchell to utilize the low bid totaling $55,000 from Jed Construction LLC to complete the cement project outside the new transportation building.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Director of Operations Jerry Mitchell to utilize the low bid totaling $55,000 from Jed's Construction LLC to complete the cement project outside the new transportation building.
I have a question before we vote.
How much questions? Great. Yeah.
Jerry, this isn't gonna actually complete the cement project, is it?
no, we've got more, and it actually works out pretty good because we want to get the cement in front of where the car storage is and in front of the grounds building. We'll have more cement that we want to put around behind the grounds building that goes to the overhead doors on the back. So it gets quite a bit of it done. And it gives us enough so we can push snow this winter and be able to get into both buildings without having any issues with freezing and thawing and all that. So, yeah.
I'll make a motion to amend to strike the words "to complete" and insert the word "for" in the last motion.
Okay. So second for that to go.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to change the recommendation or to change the motion to approve Director of Operations Jerry Mitchell to utilize the low bid totaling $55,000 from Jed's Construction LLC for the cement project outside the new transportation building. Did I get that correct, Scott? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, any other discussion? All right, then let's vote. All those in favor of the amended, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Scott. Great call. Great.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, on to agenda item number 11, board meeting date change.
Don't you need to vote on the motion as amended now?
Didn't we just vote on
We
the
did.
amended motion, Scott?
Or that you voted on the amendment, not the motion?
Okay. Did we do the motion?
I thought we voted on the motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
We said the motion.
Yeah.
The amended emotion. Motion, not emotion. Also, these coming out.
Let's move on to agenda item number 11. Board meeting date change.
Just in discussion with several of the board members and just knowing with everything with Thanksgiving coming up, it was discussed that it might be wise to just move the meeting after the holidays, because we know we have a lot of people traveling. So my recommendation is just to move it a week ahead or
Week behind.
week behind. I can't really always get those confused.
Well, yeah.
When your thermostat up or down, I can't really tell. To the November 29th, would be more, it'd be easier for people to attend.
So it'd be the following Monday.
The
correct?
following Monday, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay.
Was that okay with Missy? Does anybody check with her?
I didn't ask her.
I'm gonna assume it was, or she probably would have brought it up.
Yeah, I would guess so. That she would be okay.
We
with
have to
it.
make sure that we also notify our incoming board members as well. 'Cause
Yeah.
This will be the first organizational meeting for them.
I mean, I think that's fine. And we have it on the agenda. I didn't hear anything from anybody here. No. So we didn't have anybody say anything that was no.
It's good with me.
Okay.
I'll move to approve moving the November 22nd to 2021 board meeting to November 29th, 2021 at 6:15 PM in the high school library.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the November 22nd, 2021 board meeting to November 29th, 2021 at 6:15 PM in the high school library. So we basically move it down 1 week. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, on to agenda item number 12.
I'm gonna pull 13E.
Let me find that one. 13E.
City of
According-
Charles, bill correction,
Yes,
I don't know if I have 13E.
it would be the change in the building permit fee.
So that'd be G. Did you say G or?
E is an Edward.
12E.
the
Oh.
agenda I'm looking at says it's 13E and I just pulled it up before we started.
Okay, that might be I gotta.
Anyway, it's the City of Charles City bill correction, whatever letter and number it is on your paperwork.
Yes, and good grief.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
All right.
13E on line.
All right, so we're gonna pull, we'll just call it out here, the consent agenda item for the city bill. All right, any other items? All those in favor?
Wait, do we have to have a public hearing? Do we have to talk about that?
No, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yeah. Should have a motion, but we don't have a second.
Second,
So motion and second for the consent agenda, pulling item 13E. Okay, so let's vote on that. All those in favor?
aye.
All those opposed? Same sign. All right. So let's talk about 13E, Scott. Is that the one you see?
Yeah,
All right. Do you have some comments you want to make?
well, I'm still looking for the detailed billing from the original and from the new, from the central office. Just for point of reference, this was pulled from the meeting a month ago because when I looked at the bills, I questioned why it was so high. And it got pulled. And the new bill calculation from the city is $2,534.60. That check had been cut in one of the weekly runs that the district does and had already been sent before it came to the board. Somewhere along the line, it had actually been deposited by the city rather than sending back to us, even though they knew that there was mathematical corrections being made onto the bill. And then the city council, I see according to their minutes, a week ago tonight, cut the check or approved the check for the refund. I think going forward, somewhere along the line, there needs to be a little more control or oversight into some bills coming through the district that get paid or cut and signed before the board meetings. This is a substantial amount in a correction to a bill, $7,759.50. So I just want to point that out, and I'm still waiting to see the detailed calculations and or actual bills from the city on what we had and what we're actually doing. The math that I had done with Evan before the bill got pulled a month ago was closer to a refund of $8,700 versus the $7,700. Now I understand that perhaps the concrete that we approved tonight may have gotten added into the new bill for the building permit. There may have been other things that have been added in, but we haven't seen the details of what's been added in. And I just wanted to point that out for everyone on the board and or the public.
I think Director Mitchell has a few, with some clarity you can provide to that.
You bet. And Scott, thank you for catching that, Bill, because after you questioned it with Evan and I talked quite a bit. I called Paul Hughes, who is in charge of putting the building permits together. We asked for his documentation on that, and his documentation somehow was way off. To help with Evan, and when building permits came in before, they were paid through the finance office, and a lot of times they weren't come to me to approve anything. So when that came to me, I saw it. It's about 2.1% of the project. I thought 2.1%, I think that's okay. Well, Scott caught it and it was way off. So working again with Paul, once we saw that number that we got back in a refund, Evan called me right away and said, hey, could you do some more figuring for me? Because he's gone the next couple of weeks. So I did some more figuring, and it is off probably in my calculations about $400 yet from what I've calculated. So I met with Paul Hughes again this morning, showed him my calculations, and he is going back to the city then to see where it's off, or I need a detailed explanation on why it's still off. So yes, it does show 2,500. My calculations show it should be around $2,050. So we're waiting for Paul now to either get back the documentation on why it's at 2,500 or to say, yes, it should be 2,050. So just to give you an update on where we're at with it and what had been going on. But yeah, Scott did catch that, and I appreciate that, Scott. So that's a pretty good chunk of change. So that's where we're at.
When I saw that bill a month ago, it just seemed completely odd to me that we would pay over $10,000 for a $183,000 addition to the transportation center. Because if that's the case, no wonder very few people are building new houses in Charles City. And that's the first thing I thought of, is if buildings permits are that expensive, who can afford to build, especially in the last year with all of the other building prices going up so high. And that's why I asked it to be pulled and looked at in detail a month ago. So in the next month, even in December or January, then Jerry, you're saying that there could be additional refunds issued by the city to the school for another corrected building permit calculation.
It's either, yes, if our calculations are correct, then there would be, but or that, or Paul will come back with a detailed explanation on why it's at the 2,500. So one way or another, we'll either, get another refund, or they'll have detailed explanations, because there could be some, some electrical that's not on ours that they added to it, or something like that made it $500 more. So when Paul did talk to me this morning, he apologized, which we're having a great working relationship with the city. Don't think that anyone's out to get anybody. So that, and he also said they are looking at a new system that you put in the numbers and it automatically gets it back. And he said, I can't wait for that. So, which I can understand, because how to figure a building permit, it's a lot of calculations and everything like that. So anyway, we'll finalize that up, and when we do, Evan or myself will definitely come back and let everyone know where it's at. Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
You bet.
So do we have to?
We have to vote on this one separately.
On
Yep.
that,
So,
yes.
I guess, Scott, do you want to table
On,
this?
no, on that, well, we've got the check currently for $7,759.50 from the city. I'm thinking there will be more to come after I'm off the board, but I'll move to approve this consent agenda item currently as is.
Okay. So we have a motion. We just need a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda or refund from the city. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, so looking at my agenda, the one that I printed and the one that's online, I have different numbers.
Oh,
So sorry, I was confused, but I think that the next one is agenda item 14 for the roof project. But I have that as agenda item number 13 on my printed
I
copy.
do too.
So, I don't know what I did wrong, but apparently I can't calculate simple math here, so.
Math, that's tricky.
It is. So let's move on to agenda item number 14, because we need to open up a public hearing for the roof project, I believe. We couldn't do that before 6:15, and it's after 6:15, so I think we're okay.
Yes, you're good to go, and we just have to open up the meeting and then close the meeting or the public hearing. And I don't believe we had any written comments.
No.
So we don't need to vote on opening the public hearing. We just need to have we do. Oh, we do. Okay, so we need a motion for that one then to go to public hearing.
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I move that we go to public hearing for the North Grand Roof Project.
I'll second.
A motion is second to open a public hearing for the North Grand Roofing Project. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, so we'll open up the public hearing. We got no written comments.
No written comments.
Anyone here would like to make public comment about the roof project for North Grand? Seeing none and hearing none.
I move to close the public hearing for the North Grand Roof Project.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the North Grand Roofing Project. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we have opened and closed the public hearing. Now I think we can move on to the next item, which is number 15 for upcoming important dates.
And we'll amend, obviously, November 29th will be the new board meeting. And
So-
I appreciate also the committee meetings are changing too. Thank you for the board for being gracious with me. We're going to move to Thursdays at noon now for committee meetings because I have a conflict with administrative meetings 7 a.m. on Fridays.
So we're gonna move all committee meetings to Thursdays at noon?
That's what we were looking at, unless there's conflicts for that. I just
I
know
think
that's
that's
when
fine. I just
people
wanna
have
make
lunch
sure.
hours. Yeah.
That's
Oh, we
okay.
love getting up at 7.
Well, those of us who don't mind it, like the 7 a.m. meetings at noon are fine too.
I just do it for the working people I mean, you're all working people, but people that maybe have more rigorous schedules around their work schedules. I knew noon was probably a little bit better, but we have, trying to work around at principal schedules and different things for some of the admin meetings. And this was the time they needed was Friday. So
Sounds fine.
Sounds great.
Thursdays at noon.
Okay, so then the only other item that we want to change is the November 22nd meeting will be the 29th at the high school library.
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item number 16, big ideas. I think listening to Jake was an interesting big idea, and the dashboard that you presented.
And the one thing that we
Yeah.
didn't talk about, and it's kind of a big idea, was Larry Wolf was honored as
He's man of the year.
man of the year.
Man of the year, yeah,
So,
For Charles City.
for Charles City.
I mean, that's a big award.
Yeah.
That's a big award.
yeah, so congratulations to him.
Yeah, I don't know if he wore his orange suit, but if he didn't, he should have. I didn't see his picture in the paper. Was he in the paper? I mean, I know he
I
won
saw
it.
it on Facebook. so
Oh,
We'll see the paper.
tomorrow's paper. Great, thank you. Well, congratulations to Mr. Wolf. Okay, and any other big ideas for discussion? Then we will adjourn the meeting at 18:48. Thank you all. Great to see you.
Yeah.
Good night. Johnny Carson used to say when he would sign off, he had a saying, didn't he? See you later.